Welcome to a 1v1 between GoogleFrog in blue, starting with spiders. And he's going against TheWarning, who started Amphbots. And you can see here, TheWarning requested his replay and wonder how to play against shieldbots as Amphbots. They especially wonder how to counter Recluse. So, he starts with a kind of economic start, and GoogleFrog does the same. Ducks can have struggle a bit against against fleas, because they tend to miss quite a bit, like they overshoot in an arc, and then they miss the flea. So, going with just pure duck against spiders can be pretty risky. But yeah, getting some scouting out and forcing out some reaction is good. So you can still like raid with ducks, but you should also be like afraid of fleas in that sense. And you start pretty economically, and you set your factory on low priority, so your expansion is prioritized. And maybe you saw this flea settling down, or maybe you didn't. But yeah, you can easily move a bot to most places on this map. Like terrain-wise, spiders do have the advantage of being able to go up and down these cliffs. And you might get the sneaky mech kill here if GoogleFrog isn't quick with reacting. But he reacted in time. So yeah, there are particularly these cliffs, as well as these cliffs that give the spiders an edge in this matchup. They can abuse them with Recluse and go up and down with them with Venoms. Yeah, so it can be a bit tricky to defend because you're a bit afraid of being overrun by fleas. It doesn't look like GoogleFrog went for this tactic this game. So yeah, you won't be overrun by fleas this game. And archers, they're pretty good in general. They can deal with fleas, basically almost unlimited amounts of fleas. And I'm not sure, they probably do about even against Venoms in 1v1, although you don't want to take a 2v2 fight. Basically, you don't want to take, you want to have the larger numbers, and you can see here that the archer can also kite the Venoms a bit, since the archer has a slower projectile, even though they have basically the same range. You can kite while retreating as with the the Amphbot with the archer. So you have the retreat advantage in that sense. And here a 1v1, you're gonna be surrounded on all sides, but can you kill a Venom in time? Yeah, you almost kill the Venom in time, but now you're gonna get stunned, completely stunned almost. So yeah, I'd say that archers can do pretty well against spiders. It's just a numbers game basically. Like if the Venoms mess up, they're gonna mess up a lot. Like trying to chase down an archer and you lose half your health in your Venom immediately. Yeah, expansion wise, you're doing kind of evenly. You're even a little bit ahead. You're trying to kind of leapfrog on top of the hill. Against this many Venoms, it's probably not gonna work. You would need some units up here to do that. Yeah, at this point, you probably want to try to expand here. I think early game you can mostly just rely on archers against spiders. The Venoms has the speed advantage, but you're not that much slower, and you can pressure light expansions like light defenses much better than Venoms can. They're gonna take a bit of time just to kill one Lotus turret, and you have some time to react. Although at this point you're kind of slow to react, like you should have sent this one immediately. It's basically a numbers game at this point. And I don't really like going to boys this early. I think you want to delay it a little bit later. Because, yeah, archers are still pretty good against spiders. And also, recluses, they're pretty hard to deal with. Like the earlier recluse switch, you probably want to avoid the recluses because they outrange boys and they kite them, and they also kill archers fairly easily. And GoogleFrog is gonna go in this position. I don't like this from GoogleFrog. Like he loses one venom, will he lose two venoms? Yeah, loses two venoms, just killing one Lotus turret. Like in that sense, you can't go in with venoms against defenses and a commander like this. They're just gonna die. They deal too little damage, and if they try to go closer, they might stun themselves. It's a big risk. Really, pushing on with the archer advantage early on is a pretty good idea. It's also so the way to deal with recluses early, like the problem is that they can kite everything you have except grizzly basically. Bulkheads, they tend to miss recluses too much at range, so you can't really rely on bulkheads even though they have the same range and have a lot of HP. Relying on bulkheads will likely backfire. Although it will take some time for the enemy to actually deal with bulkheads, and the spiders might take damage that they have to repair in the process. And GoogleFrog is basically locking you off from the map. Like, I would say you want this position. Giving this position up, like, to the enemy, is pretty bad for you. Now you're basically cut off from this area. The enemy can abuse the high ground and the lob missiles above the cliffs here onto the low ground. So this area is basically a no-go zone for you now, especially when the recluses are out, because enemy can easily like defeat you there, and defending it is hard. You want to push up either here or here much earlier, so you can take these positions and work them much more. Also, you should, now you're adding bulkheads. I don't like that decision. Yeah. Like, I like lobsters. I think the best counter before you have grizzlies is lobsters and boys, basically. And then you can have some archers or some scallops as well. I would say that actually lobsters are the best artillery. And here you get divided by the hill, and you losing units piecemeal. You have to be more decisive in where you're trying to push in situations like this. Also, you could probably expand a bit faster here, because now you have an army here. But now you're starting to fall behind, I guess. Yeah, so with lobsters, the deal with lobsters is they can deny these cliffs for the enemy. Like, you can position a lobster on the high ground and it follows your army. Like, following this army, it would be really good for you, because then you can be up here and then you can throw down the units on top of these. And let's see how the bulkheads does here against the recluses. And as you can see, they're missing the recluse. So, but they're still dealing some damage to recluse, so it's, how would you say it? If the spider player is careful, they can skirmish a bit until they lose too much health, and then just retreat the recluses. Also, it's a thing to consider if you're fighting on the high ground or the low ground. Yeah. And this could have been done much earlier with much fewer archers, like raiding like this. I would prefer to do it like much earlier. This is pretty sneaky by GoogleFrog. I guess you lost this expansion and now he's coming for you. but yeah, he's not paying too much attention to that. And now Google has retreated most of his army here to defend against this little push, and it's doing decently, but it's gonna get surrounded and kited eventually by the recluse. And you can see a few Venoms aren't doing much to hold back these archers. And if they try to chase the Venoms, yeah, they die. Some sneaky fleece there, maybe killing a con? No, the Lewis turret got him. Yeah, even being in outnumbers, your units did pretty well there. And at this point, yeah, you're basically even in value killed. And Google is going for a for ravens in this position. Interesting choice. This is a pretty safe position as he has a stinger here, and you kind of have the arm and economy to almost push out the grizzly at this point, but not quite, I would say. So yeah, I would really recommend the lobster against spiders. My base combo is basically some archers and boys, and then mostly boys, and then lobsters against spiders. There's little the spider play can actually do to counter this, like they can try and kite the boys, but then you can just throw the boys and the archers at the spiders. And yeah, unless the enemy has a much larger force in like redbacks, and there you can do it pretty effectively against the enemy. I've done it several times against Drakes and Randy on Prestige. Yeah, so at this point you're falling pretty far behind. But as you can see, the archers are also pretty decent at killing ravens. And it looks like you're gonna go for a 5-walker. Personally, I don't think you need that as amps. Lobster is one of the best artillery in the game. So yeah. And here you say that you can't fight recluse on cliffs, and with lobsters you can actually. So yeah, you should be guided by the lobster. Let your inner lobsters out. Lobsters can throw game, but they can also win games. Yeah, so at this point you're way too far behind to actually be effective with anything, I think. And the enemy has all the high ground at here, and you're barely holding on to the high ground here, so yeah. Google is being pretty sneaky with his bomber, just killing mexes. Yeah, that would have to be rebuilt by you much faster. You have how many mexes? Yeah, not many mexes. Look at that metal income drop, yeah. Your Firewalker is final out, but yeah, it's too late now. I also like Anglers. I like their SAA pretty much, because they have a pretty good DPS. I like to do 600 burst damage. I mean, their DPS isn't good, but their burst damage is good. potentially only need 2 anglers to kill a bomber, which is pretty nice. And GoogleFrog is just gonna bomb the Firewalker, which is hard to prevent when you're this far behind. Yeah, basically I would recommend using lobsters as artillery in conjunction with archers and boys. Potentially you could use some scallops as well. Like you only need to watch out for basically, like venoms aren't gonna do that well because they're gonna, if you throw a bunch of units into them, venoms tend to just not do enough damage and not stun enough units and stun themselves. You wanna probably throw your whole army into their army, and basically only wanna watch out for redbacks, because redbacks are pretty nasty with that. Yeah. So I still consider this a, like, spiders do well on this map. So choosing amphbots on this map is still a bit tricky. I would still recommend trying to hold this area or this area, or both preferably, and then being able always having your army centralized and keeping a lobster with it all the time, so you can easily throw it down if the enemy is pushing down, or you can, like, if you're here, you can throw it up against the enemy. Yeah, lobsters just gives you a lot of flexibility. Think of it as an artillery piece that you can use to throw your units into the enemy. So yeah. And if you have 2, you can even steal a crab with some micros. So then even the crab usage against amphibots becomes pretty iffy if you know how to throw in a lobster and then use that lobster to throw back a crab, and then you just slow it down with your boys and kill it with archers or scallops or whatever, really. Yeah, otherwise, yeah, you kept up pretty well with GoogleFrog, so yeah, you should find the way of the lobster. Good luck and have fun.